Friday the 13th, a date that stirs unease and superstition in many. But did you know that some of the most spine-chilling events to ever happen occurred on this very day? These aren't just old myths and legends. These are real stories from the modern world, soaked in mystery and dread. Settle in, dear listeners, as I, the Tales Keeper, take you down a path of misfortune and terror, with 3 tales of true Friday the 13th horrors. Welcome to Nightmare for Giggles, where your darkest fears come to life in the dead of night. Today's stories aren't your typical campfire ghost tales. These are true, unsettling events that took place on the most feared date of all, Friday the 13th. From inexplicable disappearances to gruesome tragedies, these stories will make you question if this date is more than just a superstition. So turn off the lights, let the darkness envelop you, and prepare yourself for 3 modern-day horrors. It was the summer of 2014 when a young German man named Lars Mittank embarked on what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation with friends. He was an ordinary 28-year-old with no criminal record, a stable job, and a close-knit family. His destination, the sunny shores of Varna, Bulgaria, a place known for its vibrant beaches and lively nightlife. But no one could have predicted that by the end of his trip, Lars would vanish without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that haunts investigators to this day. Lars and his friends arrived in Varna, eager for a week of fun in the sun. The days went by without incident, filled with beachside lounging, late-night parties, and the usual tourist activities. But everything changed on the night of July 6th. While out at a bar, Lars got into an altercation with a group of men over a football match. His friends described it as a minor scuffle, something that usually wouldn't escalate further. But when Lars returned to the hotel that night, he was nursing an ear injury. He claimed he had been punched in the head during the fight. His friends urged him to see a doctor, but Lars brushed it off at first, insisting he was fine. However, the next day, his condition worsened. His ear was swollen and painful, so he finally agreed to visit a local hospital. The doctor diagnosed him with a ruptured eardrum and prescribed an antibiotic, advising him not to fly until he healed. Lars was upset, but decided to stay behind in Varna while his friends flew back to Germany as planned. This is where the story takes a strange and unsettling turn. Lars checked into a cheap hotel near the airport, telling his friends he would catch a flight once his ear was better. At first, everything seemed normal, but soon Lars began to exhibit strange behavior. He called his mother, Sandra Mittank, in a panic, saying that he didn't feel safe. He claimed that 4 men were following him, trying to kill him. His mother was alarmed, but tried to calm him down, telling him to check out of the hotel and go to the airport where he would be safer. On the morning of July 8th, Lars headed to the Varna airport, ready to finally fly home. He visited the airport doctor, who cleared him to fly despite his ear injury. But then, something bizarre happened. While in the doctor's office, Lars reportedly became agitated, muttering about shady men following him. Without warning, he stood up and fled the office. Surveillance footage captured Lars sprinting out of the airport terminal, leaving behind his luggage, passport, and wallet. He dashed across the parking lot, vaulted over a fence, and ran into a nearby field and into the forest. That was the last time anyone saw Lars Mittank. Search efforts began immediately. Police combed through the fields and forests near the airport, but there was no sign of him. His mother and friends flew to Bulgaria, putting up flyers and asking locals for help, but weeks went by with no new leads. Despite numerous tips and reported sightings, none were ever confirmed. Theories began to circulate about what could have happened to Lars. Some speculated that his paranoid behavior might have been a result of the antibiotics he was taking. Certain medications can cause rare but severe side effects, including hallucinations. Others believed he might have been suffering from a mental health crisis triggered by the stress of the fight and injury. However, the most disturbing theory is that Lars may have been right. Someone really could have been after him. Several months before his disappearance, Lars had visited his doctor in Germany for a routine checkup, and by all accounts, he was in good health. But his sudden paranoia in Varna suggests something deeper was going on. Could it be that Lars stumbled into something sinister during his stay in Bulgaria? Some have suggested that he may have witnessed illegal activity or gotten involved with the wrong people, who then began to threaten him. This would explain his increasingly erratic behavior and why he felt the need to flee so suddenly. To this day, No one knows what happened to Lars Mittank. His disappearance on Friday the 13th only adds to the eerie nature of the case. The fact that his family and authorities are still searching for answers makes this one of the most haunting missing person cases in recent history. Despite numerous searches, Lars's whereabouts remain unknown, leaving his family in a never-ending limbo of grief and unanswered questions. Whether it was a tragic case of paranoia or something far more sinister, Lars Mittank's story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are the ones that leave us without closure. And there you have it, dear listeners. A young man with a promising life ahead of him vanished without a trace, leaving behind only fear and confusion. What really happened to Lars Mittank? Was it all in his mind, or was something darker at play? We may never know. But one thing is certain. Friday the 13th took him, and it hasn't given him back. Now on to the next story. January 13th, 2012, Friday the 13th. For the passengers of the Costa Concordia, it was supposed to be a luxurious, worry-free cruise across the Mediterranean, filled with stunning views, gourmet dining, and endless entertainment. Over 4,000 people were on board, including families, honeymooners, and retirees, all eager for a relaxing voyage. But what awaited them was far from paradise. What began as a dream vacation soon turned into one of the most infamous maritime disasters of the modern age. The Costa Concordia was one of the largest and most sophisticated cruise ships of its time, a floating city with swimming pools, theaters, and multiple restaurants. It seemed indestructible, a marvel of modern engineering. But on that fateful Friday the 13th, superstition gave way to reality. What made the situation even more tragic was Captain Schettino's decision to abandon ship around 9:45 passengers were evacuated. As the ship sailed close to the tiny island of Giggles, maritime law dictates that he should have been the last to leave, ensuring the safety of every soul on board. His love of showing off, instead, Schettino was one of the first to bring the ship closer to the island passengers to fend for themselves. A salute. It was an act of cowardice that shocked the world and cemented his name in infamy. The locals on the island. The ship continued to tilt until it rested on its side in the shallow waters near the island, half submerged. The Costa Concordia in the early hours of the following day, rescue teams arrived to find the ship began to list to one side. People were trapped inside the ship, jolted out of their dinner cabins and their evening strolls on the decks that had become vertical tunnels of confusion, thinking it might be a simple technical issue. 32 lives were lost. But as the alarms blared, including a young girl and several elderly passengers, this was no minor incident. Within minutes, the ship started to tilt at an alarming angle. The dark coincidence. Water poured into the tragedy unfolded on Friday the 13th. The Costa Concordia was sinking. Notorious for bad luck and superstition. Instead of taking charge, was it really bad luck? Delayed the evacuation for a crucial hour at play, downplaying the severity of the situation. Many passengers were left in the dark, literally and figuratively, as they struggled to find life jackets and get to the lifeboats. The chaotic evacuation that followed was a nightmare in itself. Lifeboats malfunctioned, and people were left scrambling as the ship's tilt made it nearly impossible to navigate the decks. Families were separated, and screams filled the air as fear turned to terror. In the months following the disaster, strange rumors began to circulate. Some locals in Giglio whispered about an ancient curse tied to the island, a legend that spoke of a shipwreck centuries ago where souls were said to be restless, haunting the waters around the island. Some survivors even claimed they felt a strange sense of foreboding before the ship struck the rocks, as though something unseen was pulling them toward disaster. And then there was the mystery of Captain Schettino's behavior. Why did he make such a reckless decision to sail so close to the shore? Why did he abandon ship so early? Was it merely human error, or was he too under the influence of something darker, a force that led him to make choices that would seal the fate of so many? For many, the Costa Concordia disaster remains a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, how one decision can unravel into a catastrophe. But the fact that it occurred on Friday the 13th only deepens the mystery. Whether you believe in curses or not, it's hard to deny that this day seems to draw disaster in ways that feel far from coincidental. As for the wreck of the Costa Concordia, it was eventually salvaged and dismantled. But the haunting memory of that night lives on. Survivors still speak of the terror they felt as they scrambled to escape the sinking ship, and the families of those who perished are left with the weight of knowing that their loved ones' lives were cut short in such a tragic, senseless way. Captain Schettino was later sentenced to 16 years in prison for his role in the disaster. But even that couldn't erase the nightmare of what happened on Friday the 13th. And so, dear listeners, the Costa Concordia now rests at the bottom of history's sea, but its legacy continues to haunt us. Was it mere human error? Or was there something more, something darker, lurking beneath the surface of that cursed night? On Friday the 13th, the line between coincidence and curse seems to blur, leaving us to wonder if some disasters are written in the stars. Now the final story for the night. Friday, October 13th, 2020 began like any other autumn afternoon in South Carolina. The sky was clear, the air was crisp, and the students of Anderson High School were excited for their weekly soccer game. The field was packed with spectators, parents, friends, and classmates, all gathered to watch the young athletes give their all in the heat of competition. No one could have predicted that by the end of the day, the bright blue sky would turn into a stage for a terrifying, unexplained event. The soccer game was in full swing, with the players battling for possession and the crowd cheering them on. Coaches barked out instructions, the referee's whistle cut through the air, and the rhythm of the game filled the atmosphere with energy. It was the kind of day that no one expected to turn tragic. As the second half of the game approached, an unsettling stillness crept over the field. The wind died down, and the air grew unnaturally heavy. Spectators noticed a sudden shift in the weather. Though the sky remained clear, there was an odd tension, a feeling of something hanging over the field, like a quiet storm waiting to break loose. Then, out of nowhere, it happened. A blinding flash of light tore through the sky, followed by a deafening crack that seemed to shake the ground itself. It was a lightning bolt, but there was no storm, no clouds, no thunder, no rain. Just one single violent strike from above. The lightning bolt hit the center of the soccer field with terrifying precision, directly striking a group of players who had gathered during a brief timeout. Chaos erupted. Screams echoed across the field as the players collapsed, thrown to the ground by the force of the strike. Parents and coaches rushed onto the field, panicked and confused, trying to make sense of what had just occurred. Several players were injured, suffering burns and shock, but one teenager, 16-year-old Jacob Matthews, was hit the hardest. He had been standing closest to the point of impact and took the brunt of the strike. His body crumpled to the ground, motionless. Onlookers watched in horror as he lay unconscious, not breathing. Emergency responders were called immediately, and within minutes, paramedics arrived on the scene, frantically working to revive him. Jacob was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, slipping into a coma as doctors fought to save his life. His family, friends, and the entire community were left in shock. How could something so horrific happen on a seemingly ordinary day? And why had lightning struck without any sign of a storm? As news of the freak accident spread, people began to wonder if there was more to the story than met the eye. The fact that it happened on Friday the 13th, a day steeped in superstition and fear, only added to the chilling nature of the event. Some dismissed it as a bizarre coincidence, but others weren't so sure. There was something too eerie, too precise about the way the lightning struck. As Jacob lay in his hospital bed, fighting for his life, strange rumors started to circulate among the students. Some said that in the days leading up to the game, Jacob had been acting differently. He was normally an easygoing, carefree teenager, but that week he had seemed distracted, nervous even. A few of his close friends claimed he had mentioned something about having disturbing dreams that involved flashes of light and a deep sense of dread. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, brushing it off as stress, but now those dreams felt like dark premonitions. Local meteorologists were equally puzzled by the event. There had been no storm system in the area, no weather conditions that could explain such a powerful lightning strike. It was what scientists call a bolt from the blue, an extremely rare phenomenon where lightning strikes without warning, even on a clear day. But the timing and the precision of the strike, hitting the exact center of a soccer field on Friday the 13th, left many with the unsettling feeling that something more than science was at play. As the weeks passed, Jacob slowly emerged from his coma, but he was forever changed. He had no memory of the lightning strike itself, but he spoke of feeling an overwhelming sense of darkness just before he lost consciousness, as if something had been watching him. His recovery was slow, and though he eventually regained his strength, the incident left a scar not only on his body but on his soul. He became withdrawn, quiet, and seemed haunted by the event that had nearly claimed his life. The other players who were struck that day also experienced strange after-effects. Some reported vivid nightmares of storms and lightning, while others claimed they felt a strange energy in their bodies, a tingling sensation that wouldn't go away. The community couldn't shake the feeling that the lightning strike had been more than just a random act of nature. To this day, the mystery of the lightning strike on that fateful Friday the 13th remains unsolved. Was it simply a freak accident, or was it a sign of something darker, a force that chose that exact moment to make its presence known? For those who were there that day, it was an experience they will never forget, a chilling reminder that even in the clearest of skies, danger can strike without warning. And so, dear listeners, we close the book on these harrowing tales of misfortune and mystery. Friday the 13th. Perhaps it's not just a day of superstition, but a day when the dark forces of the world slip into our reality, leaving us with more questions than answers. Until next time, remember, the truth can be far more terrifying than fiction. I am the Tale's Keeper, and I'll see you in your nightmares.